I see you found our little hiding spot in the universe. Don't get too comfortable. This is a place where you will find those with an experience that's out of this world, and possibly deep within your life. I welcome you to the Oracles with James Tyson. Lean forward and listen. We will pull you into a supernatural journey with guests from around the world, each one experiencing some of the most extraordinary phenomena this wee planet has to offer. Now, here are the Oracles with James Tyson.
Well, thank you, Liam, and thank you, listener, for tuning into this episode of the Oracles with James Tyson. It's me, James, and today I am pleased to bring you a good friend of mine, Mr. Tom Dongo. Tom is recognized as one of America's leading authorities as a paranormal, UFO, ET researcher, remote viewer, and medical intuitive, and has been for many years a key lecturer at numerous U.S. national and international conferences. He studied at the Berkeley International Pyschic Institute in Santa Cruz, California, and spent the last 30 years in the greater Sedona, Arizona area. And that's what we want to talk about. That area where he's been over these last 3+ decades. Now, this area is known as one of the premier UFO hotspots in the world. Tom has been getting his hands dirty in that investigative side of things for quite a while, and he's written about it. He's the author of 8 books, including The Mysteries of Sedona, The New Age Frontier, The Alien Tide, The Mysteries of Sedona, Book 2, The Quest, 26 who have answered the call to Sedona Peak for their spiritual quests and experience, another quest book, In the Pursuit of the Ultimate Mastery. Merging Dimensions is the one we want to talk about. Merging Dimensions came out a few years back with co-writer Linda Bradshaw. What we're going to dig into more about Merging Dimensions is its new added bonus pieces to it. It's about 100 photographs in there, and there's 32 pages of color photos in the section. It's just come out again. It's been reprinted. Tom was on Coast to Coast AM with George Knapp a few weeks back, and we're going to pick up on a few things that didn't get covered in Coast to Coast. The Merging Dimensions, the incredible saga of the Bradshaw Ranch. For those of you who've heard about things like the Skinwalker Ranch or the Blind Frog Ranch, these are locations in North America where there's an inordinate amount of parapsychological activity, whether it's cryptids or UFOs or orbs or beams of light. This is the type of activity that Tom and Linda Bradshaw looked into back in the early 90s. And that's where they got their photographs from. Unfortunately, Linda's passed, and it's just but it's nice to be able to go back and check on the types of things that she thought was interesting, to the point where she would get a hold of Tom and say, hey, I hear you're good at this stuff. You want to come and poke around? Well, that led to a 4-year hobby for Tom to basically go out and find out what the heck was going on that location. It's great. It's a great book. Please go to his website, tomdongo.com. And you can click on it there if you want to read about it there and get a copy of it. It's like, as I say, you can get it from the website. Actually, you get a discount, 35% discount on the website, or you can get it on Amazon.com, Merging Dimensions. We are going to talk about his book, Merging Dimensions. We are going to talk about remote viewing. We are going to talk about a bit of his psychic ability. We're talking about the area of the Verde Valley in that part of Arizona, from Sedona west to Prescott, and then and Jerome and Cottonwood, and that area in there where he and his buddies used to literally chase down UFOs. Back in the day with CB radios, and they'd spread out and they'd try to triangulate on these things and find out what they were. And we're going to get him to tell us about some of the things that he's seen, which is absolutely fantastic. So I'm going to go grab him now. Tom, how are you?
Well, I'm great, James. Very nice to be on your show.
And very nice to have you back. I haven't talked to you for a while, but have actually been out and visited you out in Sedona, actually a little town outside of Sedona. Where were we? We were somewhere between Cottonwood and Sedona on the north side of the highway.
Yes. Yeah, it was in Clarkdale, yeah.
Clarkdale, yeah. It's I remember the ball diamond there. That's about all I remember.
Yep.
But interesting. And in our conversation there, we were talking about a lot of stuff that went on in Sedona and a few of the things you were involved in. But, as an author and as an experiencer, you go back quite a ways in that area. Back in the day where you and old-timers like Bob Meyer and others, UFO hunters, used to head out with your CB radios chasing these things down. What got you into doing that?
Well, we were there, at the time. There were about 8 serious researchers around here. Now it's really basically just me. But we had CB radios in our cars, so we would spread out around the Verde Valley. And if somebody spotted something, we'd call everybody, and they'd look in that direction. It worked fantastic for a while, but then everybody started moving away. I mean, that's just the way it is these days. So after a while, after maybe 6 or 8 months, we disbanded. But we had at the time it was the activity around here was phenomenal. I mean, it was every night. You could, I've said this many times in my talks, my presentations. You could go out any night between 1987 and 1995 and see something incredible that would change your life. I mean, every single night. So I started cataloging this stuff, and as a result, 3 books have been written about it. Linda Bradshaw wrote 1. I wrote 2. So it's been well covered, and I'm just really fortunate that I was able to document this stuff because it's anything like it has ever happened in the world. Not like what happened here. And we were just talking. I was on Coast to Coast last week for 2 hours with George Knapp, and we covered some awesome stuff. But there was a whole lot of things that we didn't cover, and one of those was when there were about 4 serious researchers around here, and one of them was Claudia Sanderson. And Claudia was a great researcher, and we think a UFO crashed on House Mountain because there was attack helicopters flying around here everywhere, loaded with missiles. They'd be in a straight line flying treetop level. So me and Claudia and a couple of other people spread out, and Claudia saw 14 attack helicopters on the ground on the other side of House Mountain. They were on the ground. So, and there were plenty of others flying around. Military was everywhere, and these helicopters were armed for combat. So, at any rate, we somehow got evidence that something crashed on Secret Mountain. I mean, it could have been a jet fighter or something secret, but we never knew. But I saw I followed a tractor trailer, a flatbed, with the wreckage on the trailer, and it had a rubber tarp covering the wreckage. It was about an inch thick, and I've asked truck drivers, "You ever seen anything like that? A rubber tarp, an inch thick?" And they said, "No, never." So whatever it was, and it was wreckage. You could see how it, the stuff was pointing out and all that, So something major crashed on. At that same time. Oh yes, I forgot this. A friend of mine called me, and he said, I have in Washington, D.C., I have a congressman friend, and he called me, and he said, what the hell is going on in Sedona? The military is getting ready to close all the roads, blockade all the roads in and out of Sedona. So I thought, well, there's confirmation right there that something awful damn big happened on Secret Mountain. So it was a wild time.
Yeah, that was going to turn it into a little mini Roswell, probably. Lock everything down.
Yeah.
No,
I had yeah, go ahead.
You say that was House Mountain or Secret Mountain?
House Mountain.
House Mountain. Okay.
It's an old volcano between Sedona, halfway between Sedona and Cottonwood. And I had a feud with MUFON for about 10 years over this, because they sent an investigator out here, a woman, and with a clipboard, and she went to the fire department, the police department, the Chamber of Commerce. Naturally, they blew her off. So she wrote this big story in MUFON's national magazine that I was a fraud, a hoaxer, a liar, and all this stuff. So I had this feud with MUFON. I wouldn't have anything to do with them for a long time, but I did finally, and I had a great presentation at Hollywood MUFON and one in Orange County. So
yeah, that's I've heard some things about MUFON that I like, and some that I'm kind of leery of. Is that they've been around long enough to possibly even been infiltrated by somebody who works on behalf of the government in pushing a lot of this stuff to the side. But, that's a conspiracy theory about the conspiracy theory types. So, I've heard bits and pieces like that. But, in your case, it probably just a lady got shot down. She was upset and wanted to blame you for the trip.
Well, the thing is, around here, see, the problem I had with MUFON at the time, when something happens, you can't run out there with a clipboard. You got to grab everything you can, because it's not going to last. Whatever it was, a UFO sighting or something or whatever, you can't take researchers with you and putter around here and putter around there. You got to grab it while it's still hot. And at the time, MUFON didn't do that. You can't go out there with a clipboard and check these things off. So I disagreed with him right there, because I've been involved in so many red-hot UFO incidents and military incidents around here. I just didn't bother with them. So anyway, that's long since gone.
And for people out there, if you're ever going to investigate something like this, you start at the point, the actual place it happened, and then go out from there. You don't start from the outside and work towards it, because by the time you get to where it started, it could be shut down, locked up, gone, and everything moved. So you go to the point and move out. Just like any other, it's me being my policeman investigation thing. But start at the point. Yeah. Don't start with the first responders. Their story's not going to change. And so go to the actual point. Get your feet on the ground there, and maybe witness something for yourself. Whatever happened to that? Did it just get eventually kind of brushed under the table kind of thing?
Yeah, after about a year, there was no real evidence. So after about a year, it just fizzled out. But I wrote about it, and I had an artist do some nice drawings of the whole thing. So, but unless you have photographs or eyewitness testimony or something like that, and we didn't. We had what we could grab, like the 14 attack helicopters on the ground that Claudia saw over on the other side of House Mountain, where there's nothing. There's 1,000 acres of open land there. There's no houses, so. But the attack helicopter is flying, and I'm talking treetop level, right over Sedona and the houses. And that's not the first time they've done this. And you could look right up at them. You could probably hit them with a BB gun, and they were loaded with missiles. I mean, why in the hell? I mean, they were ready for combat. So they knew something that Claudia and I never did, but it was pretty dramatic.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. Yeah, there's not, and for people who haven't been to Sedona, it's not a place that you're going to run into a lot of people, actually even firing guns or getting all excited. It's a pretty rural area, a smaller community, a lot of rural area, but there's nobody out there you want to go to war with.
No. Well, that kind of brings up what we're talking about on Coast to Coast, and it was a great interview with George Knapp. Just great. There were about 36 gunpoint incidents in the canyons. It was all military. They were wearing current U.S. military uniforms with no insignia on them. I can talk about that for the next 2 hours. So I was able to. Most of them were second, third person, but a few I interviewed the person. I found the person and talked to them, and this happened in just about there were 7 canyons near Sedona. And this happened in just about all the canyons. People would turn back at gunpoint, and they were machine guns. And they had, at the time I was in contact with some high-level military people, retired, mostly colonels, and a few that were active military. So I had a lot of connections at the time, and I told them the stories. And so something I never did figure out what was going on, but there was probably I know they drilled a tunnel system under Sedona. It went from, I was told later by someone in Washington, D.C., tell Tom Dongo, he's basically right, but the tunnel system goes a lot further than he thought, because I wrote about it in one of my books. And he said it starts at Area 51 in Nevada, goes to Las Vegas, and then goes to the Navajo Army Depot, which is 6 miles by 5 miles. It's loaded with nuclear weapons. They have nuclear weapons stored there. And then it made a turn to Secret Canyon, and then it went right under the Bradshaw Ranch up to Jerome, where there's 77 miles of dry tunnels from when they took $1 billion worth of, that's a B, $1 billion worth of ore, copper ore. And so there's 77 miles of tunnels under Jerome that are probably still dry and clear. And they 4,000 feet down, 4,200 feet down, which is incredible. That's 2,000 feet. I'm down in the valley. That's 2,000 feet where I am right now. They hit a pocket, enormous pocket of gold and silver, and they dug this out, and it's still down there. It may be full of water now, but I doubt it. So that the tunnel went connected with this big tunnel, which is probably a 50-foot tunnel, connected to Jerome. The tunnel's under Jerome, and then about a year later, it went straight west because people in the Verde Canyon could hear it, the drilling underneath their houses. And so there could be, there probably is an extraterrestrial base under Jerome. A lot of weird things that happen there. So there are probably 4 bases here. There's, I think 2 are extraterrestrial and 2 are U.S. military. And one of them, I know exactly where it is. And I will never talk about it on a public forum because it's extremely dangerous. Because I started to talk about this in Coast to Coast, but we never got finished with it. But I have a friend that has life threatened twice. The first is a soft warning, and the second time they said you come snooping around here again, we'll kill you. And that's a quote. So, and I knew him well, and this thing is in plain sight. It's surrounded by buildings, so nobody would ever stumble on it by accident. But I know pretty much what's there, and I saw all his photographs that he took about it. And I would never tell anybody. But on Google Earth, it's right there. It's incredible. But you would never know. But there's clues. If you look at one thing and look at another, you go, oh wow, So anyway, that I know exactly where that is, and it's extremely dangerous.
And that's whereabouts compared to downtown Sedona would that be?
It's about 5 miles from downtown Sedona, straight
south.
The crow flies.
South or east or west?
No, I'm not going to say. I'm not going to say because that would yeah.
All right, and I'm going to have to go back on Google Earth and sort of track it down myself.
Like next time I see you, I'll show you.
Okay,
you'll see stuff that should not be there, but you go, oh yeah, now I know it. Now I see what you're talking about.
Now, you also put on some tours and things around. You include those kind of things on the tours, or is that kind of still kept? Those cards are kept a little close to the vest. No,
I would do just standard UFO tours, go out in the desert. I haven't been doing them for 3 years, but they were extremely popular. And I had a tour company for 23 years. It was basically UFO tours, but we would go anywhere in the Southwest.
Oh, that's crazy! Because that's where I actually saw my first group of UFOs with Melinda Leslie, and the night vision was out in Sedona. And for people who kind of hum and haw about things like that, unless you do it, unless actually you go out and you know somebody and get the military grade night vision, It makes it a lot easier, but you can see them with the naked eye. Like, they are there, and you just have to get it through your head.
Yeah.
Satellites don't fly in groups, and these things fly in groups.
Even a good pair of powerful binoculars is almost, sometimes it's better than night vision.
Well, yeah, and that's what, we'll get into that a little bit later. A lot of people, again, as investigations of this type, whether it's any other paranormal investigation or the ufological investigations go, we are always trying to get better optics and expanding and seeing in different light conditions and multi weird lenses on these things that look like they're 4 feet long coming off a camera. Heck, you had really good success with a basically 35 millimeter digital camera with a flash on it. So we'll get into that later on the Bradshaw Ranch and what you guys were doing there. But your tunnels, and I say your tunnels, when I was talking to you up in that little town, we had mentioned, because I just come out from talking to Dr. Lynn Kitai, who put together the documentary The Phoenix Lights. That's where they originated from, wasn't it? It was the people that had seen these UFOs parade down basically the entire length of Arizona about 23 years ago. The word has it, that's what the first time they were seen was in your neighborhood, basically.
Yeah, well, the Phoenix Lights started in the Chino Valley, and where we were that day, where we were sitting. If we went over a little bit, you can look right up into the Chino Valley. It's about 12 air miles from where we were, and it first appeared in the Chino Valley, and then went south through Phoenix and down to Tucson.
Yeah, and that's all same type of, that's Prescott, that's north of Prescott Valley, north of Prescott, Arizona. I always want to say Prescott, because I don't.
Yeah, everybody.
Because I don't say apricots, I say apricots. But that's just, from Clarkdale, it's straight northwest, basically, from you guys down the highway, down. I think 89E there over to Chino Valley, but north to Chino. But that area, that entire area from the Verde Valley, and to the next with Prescott Valley, and all those little, we'll call them depressions, the valleys between the mountains you have there, all of them are incredibly active. It
has been from I don't know why this area is so mysterious, but it's it probably has something to do with the red rocks are iron oxide, so they're a little bit magnetic, so it must have something to do with that. But the Sycamore Canyon is just a few miles from where I'm sitting right here, and for a long time, I wouldn't go into Sycamore Canyon. It's a beautiful canyon. I mean, it's phenomenally beautiful. It's 33 miles long, and there's about 7 springs. There's a wonderful river that comes out of Sycamore Canyon, and some of those springs are just absolutely pure water, thousands of gallons a minute. So, but I know of some things that I wouldn't talk about here because it's too weird. It ties in with David Paulides, and all these disappearances in the national parks. Mm-hmm. But so back in the 1800s, the Basque sheep herders wouldn't stop running their sheep in Sycamore Canyon because there were too many giant hairy men stealing the sheep. So, and the UFO activity has been the worst stuff in Sycamore Canyon. The stories I've heard. So, I've always stayed away from Sycamore Canyon, but it's a beautiful canyon. I finally did hike all the way as far as you can go. It's about 6 miles back, and it's a beautiful canyon, and there's a huge Sonawa Indian ruin about halfway back, and the Sonawas disappeared about 800 years ago, and somebody found Spanish armor in one of the little Sinaloa pueblos, and it's a strange canyon. It's different than anything else around here. But so I don't know why, but there's been an awful lot of very strange UFO activity in Sycamore Canyon.
And it's a very interesting place too, because if anyone wants to go there, it's actually a park. It's a wilderness, the Sycamore Wilderness Canyon. It's a park in there, but you traverse along, like if you're going to drive, you traverse along actually the ridgeback of the mountains. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. It's like a nice little green belt in there. I shouldn't say the ridgeback of the mountain. Like you're in the green away from the desert is what I'm trying to say. It just came out sideways. Right. You're at a beautiful little gouge in these mountains, this area out here, and get a good idea of where you are. You're not that far south, as a crow's fly, basically, of the Grand Canyon. It's not that far north of where you guys are. So, a couple of 100 miles, but the stuff that people used to see in the Grand Canyon pales to what in your neighborhood goes on from the Verde Valley out to and Sycamore Canyon area.
Right.
You say you hiked up in that area before? You've hiked that canyon?
Well, I turned 75 years old in 2 weeks, so I ain't doing that no more. But when I was younger, I've been in or on everything around here, everything.
And what in your years in that area, can you tell me what is the most bizarre thing you actually saw with your own two eyes? What when you think back, when you're sitting down on the porch with a beer in your hand, thinking back, what was the thing that totally floored you?
Well, there's actually been dozens, but I've thought about that a few times. I had a hard time picking one out, but I guess the strangest out of all of them was, and some of the stories I know of and have been told that were okay. Well, okay, I'll do this first. The strangest thing I've seen around here when I was doing tours. Oh boy, I get started on this. There were actually there was a 2-week period. We watched an alien spacecraft on the ground being repaired. Now I had 8 witnesses with me, and we had 3 movie quality video cameras, and none of them would focus on this ship. So I have a friend who was a colonel in the Air Force, and I said, that had to be an alien, because if it was one of ours, there would have been attack helicopters flying all around it. And he said, agreed. No, that was not one of ours. So we watched this thing being repaired. It had some kind of damage at 5 o'clock. We couldn't see any beings because it was about quarter of a mile away. And we were looking at it with powerful binoculars. So we've got pretty good shot at it. So it had a couple of blue lights, huge, incredibly beautiful blue lights floating on the above it. They were probably 20 feet across. And then the repairs, we could see 4 or 5 people carrying flashlights around this repair, but you couldn't see the beings. And so I'm not sure if there even was beings there. It might have been something automated. So a friend of mine had this new girlfriend. He wanted to impress her. So he said, well, we're going to go down there. We all said, you're crazy. But he did it anyway. He said, no, we're going down. And he got within, a 4-wheel drive vehicle, and he got very close to this thing. And his new girlfriend said, you can let me out right here because I'm not going any closer to that thing. And when they got real close to it, it started to pulse. And I've seen UFOs do this dozens of times. And to me, that's a warning that they're getting ready to shoot. Because I've hit UFOs, actual ships, and I have an extremely powerful green laser, and they react. I think their sensors think they're being shot at. So the ship begins to pulse. And I've had people get scared to death on my tours when this thing is a few hundred yards away, and it's starting to pulse. It's real threatening. So And anyway, he came back, and that thing was still there being repaired when we left a couple hours later. So the next week, I had 2 women on a tour, and we were in the same place, and we saw all these strange orange things floating in the sky, miles away. So I said, let's try something. Let's ask this thing to come on, and for just 5 seconds, so we can see what it is. Get a good look at it. So about right after we did that, this thing blinked on, and it was a good quarter of a mile across, and it was all orange. The whole thing was orange, and it wasn't the whole ship, but it was part of it that lit up, and it was shaped like a work boot with 3 orange lights over the top of the boot from the shoelaces up. So we knew it wasn't the whole ship because maybe another quarter of a mile in front of it, there was a little piece showing that was the rest of the ship. So this thing was probably a mile across. And so after 5 seconds, the orange light blinked out, and with the white light that was on the front of it, it was like if you'd watched a boat, a 12-foot boat at night going across a quiet lake, they got a white light on it, and that's what it looked like. And so we watched this white light go through the trees on Mingus Mountain, which are about 18 air miles away. And we could see the white light going through the trees, the big sycamore trees. So that was the end of that. So another week, I had 2 other women on a tour with me, and the same thing happened again. These orange lights were, in the sky, small ones, 3 or 4 or 5 of them. So I said, this worked last week, so let's try it again. Let's in our minds ask this thing to come on. And so if some of these things, I've tried to videotape. I mean, it's just not possible. You're never ready. The camera's never ready. You're not focused in the right place, or it's so far away you can't get the thing anyway. So 18 miles away on the other side of Mingus Mountain, this was like a incredible Roman candle. For 2.5 seconds on the left, is firing these orange orbs, maybe 8 or 10 of them, up into the sky, miles up into the sky. It stopped after about 2.5 seconds, and then to the right, it did the same thing. I mean, it was shooting these balls of light that were a good quarter of a mile across, way up in the sky. They lasted 5 seconds. So they could hear our thoughts and did what they did. So not about the same time, maybe a year earlier or later, we were driving out one night from my spot was my research spot was. There were 6 of us in my van, and the guy's son was sitting next to me, and he said, "Oh, look at that!" Otherwise, we wouldn't have seen it. Everybody was talking, so we saw this thing coming. It was all orange. It had orange rings. It was basically composed of 3 huge orange rings, and it was coming right towards us. And so we got out. I managed to grab a few cameras. We had them all put away in the bag. I did get video of it for about the last mile that it flew. And the camera was all ready to go. And this thing floated like a feather, went right over the top of the van. It didn't clear the top of the van by 20 feet. And it was about 30 feet by 10 feet. And it floated just like if you blew a feather, the feather would float in the breeze. This thing made absolutely no noise, no sound whatsoever. So it went right near Cottonwood, and it turned into a white light. And it went straight up in the sky about 2,000 feet. And I have this on film, and it came back down. You can see it going behind the trees, and it was probably in full view of 10,000 people in Cottonwood, and then it disappeared. So I think it dimmed its light and just flew off. And I'll tell you another story that happened on Bradshaw Ranch. It was the strangest things I've ever encountered doing my stuff out there. One night, Linda Bradshaw and I, it's about 9 o'clock at night, Linda and I were the only ones there. Bradshaw's had 7 dogs. If a lost dog wandered onto the ranch, they'd keep it. In front of the ranch house, it was like beach sand. So the dogs, in the winter, the dogs would dig into the sand to keep warm. In the summer, they dig into the sand to keep cool. So it was about 9 o'clock at night, and we heard some strange noises, grunting and growling sounds coming towards us. There's a dry creek that goes in a semicircle almost all the way around the ranch. There's rarely any water in it. So this thing was obviously following a dry creek. So we were trying to decide: is it a mountain lion? Is it a bear? Is it a javelina? It got on the other side of the old apple orchard, and it roared like an African lion. And I mean, it was really hair-raising. So all 7 dogs jumped up simultaneously and tore off in the dark after this thing. Linda and I we were talking, and he said, oh boy, now we're going to hear dogs getting ripped to shreds. Nothing happened. About 15 minutes later, the dogs came back and just settled back down in the sand. This thing obviously was huge, whatever it was. It walked down the dry creek, and when it got near there's 2 horse corrals. There was one at one end of the ranch, and there was one behind Linda and I, and there were about 8 horses. There was 4 in one and 4 in the other. The horses started to scream like a woman, all of them. And I've asked horse people, have you ever heard a horse scream? And they say, no, never. Well, there's just like women screaming. Where the creature was, the horses were trying to kick their way out of the corrals. There's 2x10 boards made up the corrals. They were trying to kick their way out. They didn't. Evidently, the creature walked right by the corral, and everything quieted down. So Linda and I had 3 million candle power spotlights, and we walked where we thought the creature was. We got as close as we dared to. We thought it was in the trees, but it wasn't. It was on the hill to the left of us, looking down at us, because the next day we went there during the day, and it left round tracks 72 inches apart. The stride was 72 inches. I'm 6'2". My stride is 27 inches. So this thing was walked on 2 legs, and it was enormous. But why the round tracks, we could never figure it out. But we flagged the tracks so you could see where it walked. Unfortunately, those photographs got lost. A bunch of them got lost somehow, and that was one of them. But it was pretty startling watching where this thing went. So that was the end of that. It never happened again. But that's the most dramatic thing that I've ever had. Experiencing on the Bradshaw Ranch. And
while I've got you on that subject, Bradshaw Ranch is a very interesting location in Sedona, Arizona area. It basically was like a movie set back in the day, and eventually one of the stuntmen bought it up. Bob Bradshaw. It was about 140 acres, and he bought it in 1960 for about $200 an acre. And that...
No, actually 1949.
Oh, he got it in 1949? Okay. Yep. My research had him buying it in 1960, but from the movie people. But who knows? Yeah. You do, because you're there, and you know Linda. And then eventually, it was purchased by the U.S. government. You and Linda wrote a book, and it's called Merging Dimensions. Now, if you guys go to tomdongo.com, that's D-O-N-G-O, Dongo, tomdongo.com, go up into the top of his website and slide over to the right and click on Merging Dimensions, new edition, and you'll read a little bit about he and Linda's book on the incredible saga of the Bradshaw Ranch. It's fascinating, the stuff that went on there. Let's get a little bit deeper into your experiences on the Bradshaw Ranch and what my listener can expect if they pick up your book. It's almost like you did this just for me, because it's got pictures in it. It's got 32 pages of color photos, and if anyone knows me, I'm not going to pick up a book unless there's a picture in it. So it's something that I'm very, very interested in, and it's because it's Sedona, and it's that part of Arizona, and it is supernatural. How did you and Linda get together? Did you kind of show up on her place, or did she call you out and say, hey, there's crap going on here?
I'll get to that in a second. The thing I did on Coast to Coast was 2 hours. It was a 2-hour advertising for Merging Dimensions. It's revised, the second edition of Merging Dimension, and it is now available on Amazon.
Okay. Perfect.
It is now available on Amazon, but if you go to my website, the publisher has given a 35% off discount plus shipping. It's actually cheaper on tomdongo.com than it is on Amazon. Unless you have Amazon Prime, you're going to pay more on Amazon. So tomdongo.com is a better deal. So Linda and I got together. I'd heard about the goings-on. I was just getting into writing about high strangeness, and I am credited as being one of America's top researchers now on UFOs, extraterrestrials, and the paranormal. That's Coast to Coast. Anyway, I had heard about the weird stuff going on the Bradshaw Ranch, and I was just getting into writing stories and whatnot. I wrote some magazine stories, and I started writing a book. So I'm delighted. I got a letter from Linda Bradshaw And she said, there's been strange things going on out here on the ranch, and you have quite a reputation. Would you be interested in coming out and spending some time with me, and I'll show you the photographs? So, of course, I was delighted. I thought, wow, finally I got a chance to go out. The Bradshaw Ranch, I ended up spending 4.5 years with Linda Bradshaw, about 3 or 4 nights a week until about 1 o'clock in the morning doing this stuff. And it was an experience that I have said that very few people on this planet ever had the experiences that Linda Bradshaw and I did. The kind of photographs we got, which are in merging dimensions, we've got, and these are all, there's about 100 photographs, and there's 32 pages of color photographs, and they're for real. They're not fake, they're not hoaxed, they're not staged anyway, and most of them are 35 millimeter. Actually, they're all 2, I think, that are digital, all the rest are 35 millimeters. So, anyway, I went out, and she showed me orb, O-R-B, orb photography started on the Bradshaw Ranch. It started with Linda Bradshaw and Linda Crystal in Pine Bush, New York, at exactly the same time. They've both passed away. Both Lindas are gone now. From Bradshaw Ranch in Pine Bush, New York, orb photography spread around the world in just a matter of months. People were seeing orbs around the world. And it's some kind of living organism. I don't know what. There's been studies done on orbs, and they're alive, whatever they are. And they've probably been here as long as the Earth has existed. It's just one of these great mysteries that will probably never be solved. But these things are alive, because Linda and I are around them so much. Linda's husband, Bob, he saw so much it blew him away. He had a craft land right in front of him at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and was surrounded by a bunch of spheres. And he was actually on national TV talking about this. And Bob, just an old-time Arizona rancher, he had seen enough. And Linda used to go in and say, Bob, you've got to come out and see this. You wouldn't believe it. He wouldn't come out. He stayed in there watching TV. He never came out once in 4.5 years, not once. So it was an interesting start. I would usually come out of there at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I would be tired, dead tired, hungry. And I've joked that God could have been thumbing a ride the side of the road and I wouldn't have stopped for him. And I'm not joking. I was that tired and that hungry. I used to have UFOs waiting for me, sitting over the road waiting for me. People would say, oh, come on. Yeah, well, they were there. And there are other people that saw them. It was about a 6-mile ride on an empty dirt road at the time. There were no houses on that road other than the Bradshaw Ranch at the time. There was one night that I was driving out, and this was a huge ranch right off to my left. And I said, well, I didn't know there was a ranch there. I've never seen that before. After driving out on that road for 3 years, it wasn't a ranch. It was a ship on the ground, and it was lit up. The windows were lit up. But to my mind, I was convinced that it was a ranch house. And the next day I thought about it. I said, no, wait a minute. There's no ranch house there. So what I saw must have been an enormous ship on the ground. And during the course of my research, I interviewed probably 300 people about contactees and abductees. I got to be a real expert, a world expert on this stuff. Well, what happened one night, I was on my way out from the Bradshaw Ranch, and a light started following me in the trees, and that really pissed me off, because I said, oh no, you're not messing with me like that, because I know they can read your mind. If they're close to you, they can read your mind. So anyway, this thing stopped following me in the trees. That's an abduction scenario. If you have a big light, a sphere following you in the distance, that is the start of an abduction scenario. So I told them, you're not going to do that crap with me. Don't even try. I went on about another 2 miles, and I came around the corner, and here was a ship. It was right off the ground. It was about 50 feet across with multicolored flashing lights all around it. And I said, oh, boy, here we go. So it was going about 20 miles an hour, the same speed I was. It was going to intersect with me on the Doe Mesa Road by Doe Mesa. So I got out, and I looked at it, and I said, I'm just not in the mood for this kind of crap. That's not the word I use, but I'm just not in the mood for this kind of crap tonight. And it stopped dead in the air. And then I realized they had been reading my mind all along. In a second, the thing was gone. It just gone over the horizon. 1 second, it was gone. So I was dumbstruck. I said, well, shoot, what would have happened? I thought about it a million times. What would have happened if I'd have continued and met this ship? It was a good 50 feet across on the road. They wanted to see me. They wanted to talk to me, but they could tell I wasn't in the mood. I was serious. I mean, I would be so tired, so hungry coming out of the ranch. Jesus could be trying to thumbing a ride on the side of the road, and I wouldn't have stopped. And some of the things I've seen coming out of the ranch at night would have scared the hell out of most people. But Linda and I got so used to this stuff happening on a continual basis, and this is one thing I wanted to talk about on Coast to Coast. One night I was coming out. You know how you're in a shallow, crystal clear river, and you'll be walking around, up to your ankles, and a fish will take off real fast, just gone like that. Well, for some reason, these phenomena were red and white. I can't figure that out. But so this red and white fish, big one, took off from out of the bushes and went kind of at a 30-degree slope to my right, and it was like just a giant fish taking off. I'm thinking, well, what the hell?
In the trees.
But it was there. It was hiding in the trees. So I thought, what the hell? I know, So a lot of that stuff happened, and actually the Travel Channel did a reenactment of my meeting with that flashing light ship, and it was pretty good. Anyway, it's just one of the dozens and dozens and dozens of things that happened out there when I was on the ranch with Linda.
That is crazy. And again, if you go to tomdongo.com, check it out and buy your book off his website, you'll get it less expensive, probably get to you just as quick as Amazon, and they won't fly a drone into your house to drop it off. But go to Tom's website if you're going to buy any of his books at Tom Dongo.
Well, if it's easy to go to Amazon, they have. We really overstock them with books, so they got plenty of the new version of Emerging Dimensions. They got plenty of them, so no problem with Amazon now. They're all set up.
Excellent. And when you say the UFOs, like as you were leaving the ranch, you described it as they were waiting for you. What do you think their purpose of wanting to communicate with you or wanting to pick you up was?
Well, I was coming out of the ranch one night. There was and these were they were white spheres about 50 feet across. Long time ago, some of the real old time UFO researchers, they say that's when their propulsion is fully charged up. They'll glow orange or white or different colors, but that's when their propulsion. There's actually a disc in there. Well, I could tell a lot of stories about that from the old timers. But so anyway, one night I got to the top of Bradshaw Hill. Bradshaw Hill is a lot higher than the ranch. I looked out. Here's a 50-foot orb right over the road, and then there was another one off to its left, about 300 feet up, at a bit of an angle. So I'm going, oh man, this is great. I'm not going to drive right into that thing. So I stayed at the top of Bradshaw Hill until I just couldn't stay there any longer. I was just too tired and too hungry. So I started down the hill, and I got about halfway down. There's one spot that was a dip, and when I came up out of the dip, they were gone. Either that or they turned the lights off, and they were just sitting there. I didn't care anyway. I went for it, and I always watch for missing time. I would watch my watch constantly to see if I had any missing time, and I had no missing time that night. So I've never had any missing time on any of these strange things that have happened out there.
Well, so in your best of your memory, you've never been abducted then? Or I shouldn't say that. You just don't have any missing time.
Well, everybody's asked me that. I can't consciously remember, anything like that. But I know all the signs of being abducted. The strange odors in the house, the lights floating around. That. As far as I know, I never have it. I wanted to mention this on Coast to Coast, but I didn't get a chance. 25 years ago, I was invited by the University of California, Berkeley. They wanted to study me for 2 weeks. I'm so weird. And I've had strange abilities my whole life, remote viewing, psychic, and whatnot. I was sponsored by Dr. Jim Harder, Harder, and he was really into UFOs. So I turned him down. I said no, and I probably still wouldn't have done it. But they were they were going to pay all my expenses to come to Berkeley, and the University of California wanted to study me. And I thought no, and I know it had everything to do with extraterrestrials, but I saw it. No, I declined. So I think it would have been interesting because it was. I say that people look at me funny, but Dr. Harder, he died a few years ago, so I can't prove it anymore. But Jim would have backed me up all the way. So anyway, it happened.
Oh yeah, I know that a friend of mine, Barry Taff, was doing parapsychology at UCLA back in the late '60s, early '70s. They were doing remote viewing and all sorts of other things there. So if people think that universities don't do stuff like this, well, you're wrong, because I know they do.
Yeah, well, no, that's all right. But no, I have a note right here in front of me. I got a text from a professor at Stanford University. This isn't going on now, but he was the head of it. And he said, I've been studying your photographs, that basically the ones I have in merging dimensions. And he said, we got the same things. We study the same things at Stanford. He was a professor at Stanford, and I said, well, that's pretty cool. So he said, you know what? Because all along I've been saying it's not the camera, it's the person. That's why they get these photographs. And he said, well, you know what we did? We left the lens cap on the camera. And I'm thinking, what? I'm going, so at any rate, this fellow, this professor, he's retired now, but he wants me to give him a call and talk at length about this stuff. But they study this stuff. It's the same kind of photographs that Linda and I got. Stanford was studying these things. I don't know, a lot of times I wonder, did they get the idea from me, or did it just happen simultaneously? So I don't really know. Anyway, I was flattered by that, because it really reinforces the stuff I've done. So many times I thought I was going insane, and then it would get validated by somebody like this professor, in Stanford. So, yeah, really cool.
Well, you look at guys like Jeff Meldrum, professor of anatomy and anthropology, and professor at the Department of Anthropology at Idaho State University. He is the go-to guy for Bigfoot. Because he is looking. Right. He is kind of the filter that looks at it through with an eye that's a little bit different than if I ever saw Bigfoot, I'd be bouncing off the walls for about a week, and I wouldn't know how to communicate it with somebody. But he's the one who basically will calm it all down and say, "Okay, show me what you got." And he'll go into it. And that's what, Jim Harder at UCal Berkeley and your buddy at Stanford, that's all they're doing. They're looking at this stuff and taking a deep breath, relaxing and saying, okay, what do we have here? What is this? What could it be? And then we'll move on from there. Because the phenomena itself, it's not unique to 5 people. It's unique to thousands of people, and the trick is to figure out what the connection is. And like you said, it's most likely not the camera, but the person holding the camera. So what is it about that human being that connects them? Why does that make, Tom, why are you an antenna that attracts this thing? How can?
Well, a million times I've said it. Why me? Why in the hell me? If you read my books, some of the stuff that happened to me is almost impossible, but almost all the time it was witnessed. And I'm going, why me? I have no ego about this stuff, and I sure as hell haven't made a lot of money on it. But 3 or 4 times I've said, I'm done with this. I'm not doing this anymore. I've had it. I can't, especially the attacks. I've been attacked so venomously over the years by skeptics, doubters, debunkers, you name it. And so I quit. So but about a month after I'd quit, something would happen. Somebody call me and say, there'd be a UFO thing going on or something. So I'd get right back into it. That happened 3 or 4 times. I'm a very, very good remote viewer, and I've been asked a million times to teach it. I have a natural ability for remote viewing. I wish that everybody could learn. I'm really holding this thought that everybody could be taught remote viewing, because if they did, if everybody could be a good remote viewer, there would be no more secrets. And people get pissed off at me about that. Oh, I've had people just get livid. What? No secrets? I can't have my secrets? Yeah, if you couldn't keep deep, dark secrets, a myriad of problems would be eliminated. And so I really hope that somebody start teaching remote viewing, because it's not hard to teach. It really isn't. I'm very, very good at it. If everybody could remote view, and for instance, I can see into a human body like an X-ray machine. I've tried to make money at it. It never works out for me to make money doing this. So I do it with my friends, or anybody just needs it, whatever, and they want to make a donation, give me $100 or whatever, fine. And I've done this on hundreds of people with I would say 90% accuracy. I can scan a person's body, kind of like Carolyn Miss. It's similar. What she does and what I do is similar. And there's only one other person I've ever run into, Jay Caliendo in Phoenix. Jay Caliendo and I can see into a human body exactly the same way, because I've sat with him. We've talked about it. The interesting thing is I don't see blood. I can go through all the organs, and I can scan somebody's body and tell them what's wrong with them. Oh, you got arthritis in your knees, and you got some minor blockage in your heart. that kind of stuff. Yeah, that can be taught. That can be. I could teach it, but I'm just getting too damn old now. But it needs to be taught to everybody.
Can you, Tom, can you look at your own hand and do it, or can you only do it on other people?
Good question. A healer cannot heal themselves. I have never run it. I've known some of the best healers that ever lived, and they can't heal themselves. They can heal everybody else, but they can't heal themselves. I mean, somebody might prove me wrong on that, but I don't think so. Because I've worked with some of the best healers in the world ever, and they couldn't heal themselves.
Yeah, I've heard that too. That I have yet to get somebody to say yes. When I look at my own hand, I can see if I've got a broken bone or something. But when they do break a bone in their hand, it's like somebody else is telling them it's broken.
Yeah,
like they're getting the information, but they can't.
I know a woman that could. Yeah, I know a woman. She used to make $500 an hour in Japan. She could heal anybody of anything, but her own health was she was a wreck. I mean, I'm talking serious wreck. And I said, might just be you absorbed a lot of this stuff that you cured people. And she said, yeah, I agree. I think so. So, but yeah, her own health was really bad, really poor.
Yeah, back in the day, there was a term, I think, Death Eater. Some of the healers, they would actually take, like, absorb whatever was inflicting you out into them and then exhaling it and pushing it out. But who knows how much of that stuff was, stayed residual within their bodies. So, yeah,
I know. It's like evidently Sai Baba was very good at that. It's too bad he got, what happened to him, what he did. Because Sai Baba was, as far as from what I know, was an incredible healer. But he would do that. He would absorb somebody's disease and then expel it himself. So I'm really curious about that because I wouldn't dare to do it. I really wouldn't because I wouldn't know how to expel it. But evidently the ones that do it are very, very good at it. I've never met somebody that can do that, but I've heard of like Sai Baba. I've heard. I knew about him because I had people who used to live with him. So, yeah, it's strange.
Yeah, and he was an Indian gentleman that, if I got the right guy, he passed away about 10 years ago.
I don't know.
He was a reincarnation of somebody. Is that the guy you're thinking of?
I haven't heard anything about Sai Baba for 15 years, so I don't know. But I know people that lived with him. They saw what he did, and he really did. He was an incredible healer. It wasn't faked. But I don't know. These, it's like. Boy, I don't know. I'm probably going to piss a lot of people off. But John of God, it's miracle. Yeah, right. Yeah, he did miracle healings, and I know people that were there that saw it. He liked little girls too much. I mean, he was because he ruined himself. I mean, it's so these people, these awesome advanced people, human things happen to them, like Sai Baba and John of God. Because I know of some of the healings that John of God did, and it was miracle stuff. So at one point, I'm sure this is true because it came from a credible source that way back when John of God was the Brazilian Medical Association was going to run him out of business. So John of God said, "Well, send me a sickest person." And so they did. They sent him a medical doctor. They had a brain tumor, and John of God took it out with a rusty spoon, the brain tumor, and he gave him the brain tumor. And he had tested. So they did, and he said, yeah. So they left him alone from the story that I know. I mean, it could be, there's so much fake news, but I think this is for real. They left him alone for a long time, and still he, the little girl, teenage girls stuff, and then he destroyed himself. I mean, it got really, really, really bad. So did something evil get a hold of him? So I just don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, it's we will know when we die, but right now we don't.
Right.
Sai Baba, there were claims of sexual abuse by him going back many, many years. He died back. He was 84 years old when he died. In 2011. He's gone. But you look at the balance of this guy's doing. This all started for Sai Baba when he had a stroke. And all of a sudden,
I didn't know that.
After his stroke, he had this ability, and a few heart attacks, and after that, something happened.
Really?
So I wonder if you talk to people who have near-death experiences or death experiences. Maybe something stepped in and thought they'd take a run in that specific vessel until it was worn out, and it eventually worn out. So. Whether it was a good thing or a bad thing, at the end of the day, there's balance, and he did a lot of bad things and a lot of good things. So, what was did it balance out evenly? Who knows? And and who knows if that's even a good way of putting it? I don't really know much about the guy other than little bits and pieces what you can find online and read about him. So, and same with John of God. What his challenges ended up being. You kind of hear the good stuff, and people push the bad stuff out of the way, but you shouldn't really do it. You got to take the good with the bad, and everyone's going to make their own judgment on these yahoos. I shouldn't say yahoos. The remote viewing thing. There was I interviewed a guy a few years back. He was an retired Seattle City policeman, Washington State. He teaches remote viewing in night school in college. And so you can take courses on it. And he called me. I think he wrote a book on it. He called me up once and says, "Hey, you'd be good at this because you have that intuitive ability. It just needs to be developed and then go from there." And most people have an intuitive ability. It's just in our upbringing, or heck, it came down to diet and how it's suppressed. And he says, once you can focus and open that up, off you go. And you can, and like you say, anybody can learn how to do it. There was a psychic, and I can't remember her name. She used to be on the TV series Psychic Detectives. She would go to the CIA every year, or every couple of years would have a conference, and it was a bunch of their remote viewers would get together. And I used to joke saying, they'd pick a location, you'd all remotely go to the conference. But she would go there, and they were fascinated with her because she did it naturally, and they were all trained to do it. And she said, no, I can do it just because I've always done this ever since I was a kid. Where they did the remote viewing, where they were given a number, and then focused on the number, and then would make notes of what they were getting from focusing on the number. She would actually shut her eyes and open them, and she'd be in the room and just be able to describe the entire room and who was in it. Well, that was different from the people who were trained to do it. Right. Sitting at with a notepad and given a number. So they were fascinated with her ability. And she and it was kind of funny with her. Oh darn, I can't remember her name, but she was a couple of glasses of wine. She was 110% into her game after a couple of glasses of wine. But unless she had a couple of glasses of wine, she was about 80% right. So whatever was working through her liked a little bit of the grape.
Well, I have my own technique it's my technique, and in my book, Unseen Beings, Unseen Worlds, which is out of print now, but it's still available on Amazon. They have a few left, but I have a chapter. I think it's chapter 8, and that book got to be very popular because of chapter 8. Because my remote viewing ability has gotten kind of famous. So I've had Ingo Swan and Russell Targan, those guys that developed their technique. Well, I've had their guys try my technique, and they say it works better. One government-trained remote viewer had his 10-year-old son try my technique. He had a 100% hit rate. It's so much easier than the government. It's what I know and what I've used and what I've. I had a friend of mine who's a psychologist, and he studied me for 6 months. We did study. He was in Durango, Colorado, and I was here in Sedona, and we experimented for 6 months. And he totally validated my remote viewing ability. We would do tests. Oh, and I'll tell you this: how much time do we have left?
Oh, we got about half an hour, 20 minutes. Go for it.
Geez, we got. All right. But I had an experience where I would go to Tom's house, the psychologist in Durango. He lived up on a mesa in Durango. It's a beautiful spot. I loved that house. He had to sell it. So I would appear by his office window above his driveway. And I'd go through his office window. It's a strange experience. It's like kind of like a dream. I would float through his window, go through his office. He had a spiral staircase, and I would go down the staircase, and then we'd do whatever we were going to do. And I discovered that if whatever he put in the sun, I could see in detail, no problem. But if he moved it over into the shadow, I could barely see it. So one night we were. This is probably 15 years ago now. No, it's probably 20 years ago. We set this thing up, and we said 7:30. So we were gonna continue the test. So I came there an hour early. I didn't. So just for the heck of it, and so I went through his office window down the stairs. About halfway down the stairs, I got panic like I've never experienced before. I felt threatened. I felt something was going to attack me. So I stayed there for a while, and I can do a psychic scan. I have this ability to scan like radar, and I couldn't find anything. So I went down. I sat. My body's down here in the Sedona area. I live in Cottonwood, Arizona now, but So I went down, and I'm sitting on his steps at the bottom, just like my body's there, and I'm watching him cooking, and I'm smelling. You can smell. Remote viewing, you can smell smells.
Yeah.
That's been long established. So I was sitting on his step down there, and he was making something that smelled like chili. It wasn't chili. I can't remember what it was. I could smell it. It smelled real nice, like chili. He had a red, checkered black and white shirt on, cowboy boots, blue jeans, and some other stuff. And I watched this for a while, and so then I called him. I said, Tom, I've been sitting here for half an hour or an hour watching you doing what you're doing. And I said, what's that stuff you're cooking? It smells like chili. I think it was spaghetti sauce. He was a gourmet chef. So I got everything right. I told him what he was doing, the whole deal. And so I said, hey, Tom, are you here alone? Because we had this deal where it was just me and him. So I said on the phone, Tom, are you the only one here? And he kind of sheepishly said, no, I invited my next door neighbor. And I said, where is he? And Tom said, he's over there sitting on the couch. I couldn't see him. I don't think the man had a soul. I said, Tom, I can't see him. But he's right there on the couch. And it scared the hell out of me. I've never had a scary feeling like that in my life. I could see the couch, but I couldn't see him. So was he a being, a soulless being? So anyway, we got on with it. I really was ready to split at that point. So we did the test. So he wanted his neighbor to witness it, and I wanted to just be done with it. So I got it about 80% right. He was take this stuff and put it on a table, and I'd look at it and I'd tell him what it is. And the funny thing is, his dog, one of those little Scottish dogs, those 10-pound Scottish dogs. The animals could see me. They'd follow me around, and the birds. He had a bird. It was like tropical bird thing on the outside of his house. So he liked, and it was humidified. And, he had all these tropical birds, small ones. I would go in there, in my mind, remote viewing, and the birds would watch me. They'd fly right up to me and look at me. And I said, you little buggers, you can actually see me. And his dog would follow me around. so they could see me, and in remote viewing, it's like a dream. It's kind of like you're dreaming, but you're not. So I got lots of stories like that. But yeah, anyway,
that's fascinating. We were talking to Tom Dongo. Please go to his website, tomdongo.com, and look at some of the stuff he has written and what he can do. And we're just talking about a little bit of this remote viewing and his ability to do it. I'm wondering if, it's weird. I wonder if some alien beings don't have, or maybe he had a soul, or I don't know. Maybe could he have been like somebody who wasn't from here, an alien? Or have you seen during remote views? Have you seen alien beings?
Oh yeah, I'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah, and I can teach people how to do this. I've done it. Well, no, he was his neighbor had been there for a long time, a lot longer than Tom. So no, he was just. I have no explanation for it. I have no idea why I couldn't see him. But I looked at the couch, and it scared the hell out of me. Because Tom said he's sitting right there, but I couldn't see him at all. Nothing. So, you asked about it. Okay, getting back to remote viewing. Remote viewing is not a psychic ability. It's something that anybody can learn. I've taught lots of people, but and true, there are people that can't get it. I've tried. There's a few people I tried to teach, and they couldn't get it. Just couldn't. It wouldn't. Just wouldn't. Vibe with them. So remote viewing is anybody can learn it, because it is not a psychic ability. It's something that can be taught. So you asked about extraterrestrials. I'll tell you another true story. I was. Like I said, I used to think I was insane. I said, I've got to be crazy to be doing this stuff. So I would go out into space and find an alien spacecraft and visit with them. And it's not hard to do. You just go out, and you're not imagining it. I tell people, you're not imagining this. You're really doing it. And some people get so scared, they say, oh, no, I can't do it. I can't do it. Stop. I'm not going to do it. Yeah, okay, fine, whatever. Suit yourself. But so I would go out into space and find a craft. I'd find a ship, and you get close to it. I'll tell you an interesting part of this story in a minute. So I would get close to this ship. I'd go a little bit closer, and if it felt good, keep going. If you got right up to the ship and it felt good, keep going. But if you felt threatened, get away as fast as you can. If you felt that this thing was dangerous, get away from it as fast as you can, and find another one that's friendly. So I would do that. I would go through the walls of the ship, and they'd look up at me. They'd say, "Oh, another damn human," and they just keep going about their business. So I'd float around this ship and look at their chairs and what because I had no idea what the instruments were. But I would look at anything, and they were usually soft colors, soft whites or something, very, very easy on the eyes. And they'd be busy going about that. And these were not human. They were humanoids. All these ones that I ran into were humanoid. And one time I was I get a little bored sometimes. I get a little funny about this stuff. But there was I asked one of the extraterrestrials. Totally not human. I said, "Would you let me probe your mind?" And he basically said, "Sure, have at it." So I'm right in front of this extraterrestrial, and I'll tell you something really interesting in a minute. So I as best as I could, I probed. This being was probably 3 million years ahead of us, or more, and so I psychically probed his mind. I used to be very good at that, but I was in a bad car accident. I've lost some of my psychic abilities. And somebody said it wasn't an accident. No, it probably wasn't. But anyway, I got a sense of what this extraterrestrial was its life, and it cooperated fully. If you can penetrate my mind, do it. So I got as much as I could, and I thanked him very much, and I left. So I was Oh, this was a long time ago, probably 20 years ago. I used to go to all the UFO conferences, and Joe McMonagle was standing beside me. I think Joe's still alive, but at the time he was a top U.S. government remote viewer. And I was just in a circle of people, and he started talking about, oh yeah, I go onto alien spacecraft all the time. And I'm thinking, well, damn, I'm not crazy after all, because the government's top remote viewer is doing the same thing I am. So anyway, so Joe went on to this alien craft, and they warned him. They said, don't come in here. So he ignored them. So they warned him twice, and they said, we're not going to warn you again. Leave. And he didn't. So they put him in a cage. They he couldn't get out of. He said it terrified him, and they wouldn't let him go. I mean, here's Joe McMonagle, the government's top remote viewer, talking about stuff I do all the time. I'm going, yeah, I'm not crazy. I'm really not crazy. And this has happened to me a lot in the past. I find some of the crazy things I do get validated. So, So anyway, after a while, they let him go. But he said it was a terrifying experience. He couldn't get out of that. No matter what he did, he couldn't get out of that cage, that energy cage they put him in, or whatever it was. So yeah, remote viewing is a fabulous thing, and maybe. I've been asked so many times to teach it, and it would be such a great commitment. But the 4 times I've agreed to do it, something went wrong every time, so I couldn't. And the last time was a big crash. Everything screwed up. Everything went wrong at the last second. So this is going to be a big deal. A monthly, twice a month, and it totally fell through. Bizarre. It's about 2 years ago now. So I may yet teach remote viewing. I'm very good at it. Very good at it. And I covered. Yeah, go ahead.
So when you were thinking of putting together the course, how was it going to be done? Is it an online course, or were you going to take people in would you do it in person, or how would you teach a course like that?
Well, we had a space that would hold about. We were going to limit it to no more than I think we said 30 or 40 people, and charge something really reasonable, enough so I can make some money. I mean, most of these people that teach remote viewing like that charge thousands, and I wouldn't do that. I would charge maybe $20, $30, or whatever, per person, as long as they stick it out for the 4 or 5 times that if they needed to be there. Then I'd make enough money, because space rental is damn expensive these days. If you rent a space somewhere that will accommodate 40 people or 50 people, and especially if it has a sound system, it's damned expensive these days. Yeah. So I wanted to cover that, and it was all set up, and everything went wrong at the last second. I mean, it was just there was some people I said, I will never talk to these people again. It got so bad. So it fell through, but this has happened 4 times now when I get ready to teach remote viewing. So so I don't know. Who knows? Well, it may happen.
It may happen unless your ability and your methodology for teaching remote viewing is something that somebody out in the great ether doesn't want other people to know. They'd rather have people just kind of fumble through it the hard way, as opposed to the easy way that you teach.
Well, I want so many people to learn this. I wish I was 50 years old instead of 75 in 2 weeks. I would do it, but there are some people you can't teach them. I know because I've tried, but some people get it instantly. So enough people. I would hope that enough people. It's just like psychic ability. I've worked with some of the best psychics that ever lived. And you can be near a great psychic, and you will magnetically absorb what they know. I know because I've done it. Like long stories. I better stay away from that. But you can but I've been in a room full of some of the world's greatest psychics, and I have amazing psychic abilities that. So anyway, so psychics could be taught to certain people, but some people can't learn it. I don't know why, but they can't. Because I've tried, but some people take it. So I would go for the hundredth monkey thing. get enough people that could do this, and it would spread, to other people. I think it would be contagious, because remote viewing is absolutely real. I mean, I've been doing it my whole life, and it's fabulous. I mean, if I don't think, because I never learned it. I discovered that I was a spontaneous remote viewer. In fact, my friend, the psychologist, discovered it because I was with him one day. He was typing up reports, and I said, Tom, at the time I had 6 books. He had a beautiful dining room table in his house in Durango. I said, Tom, did you leave my books upside down, covers down, front covers down on your dining room table? And he stopped. And he said, "Why, yes, I did." And I said, "I can see him like I'm right there." So he got intrigued all the hell. And so we spent 6 months from that time testing my remote viewing abilities, and it was fantastic. So I've learned things that everybody should know. I mean, everybody should know this, because it would make life so much more interesting. It opens you up to a different world. I mean, a whole different world, because you have an ability to see things that you normally can't see. So anyway, maybe it'll happen someday.
Oh, that'd be fascinating. I'd love to do that. It's one of those things, I got that bucket list. I should have had it when I was a policeman, but I wonder if that was ethical. Well, yes, of course it would.
Oh, yeah,
the military does it all the time.
Of course it would. Yeah. Hey, I know people. I know police officers that are psychic, and they use them. They use those to, I know what I'm talking about, because I've worked on murders, so I know, and I've known police that can do that. So it's absolutely cool. If you do something, if you use a fantastic ability for the wrong reasons, like trying to make a lot of money or hurt somebody else with it, you're going to get it. It's going to come back to you. You're going to get it back. So anyway, I know police that do that, and no, that's perfectly fine, because you're after somebody that deserves to be caught. So the murders that I worked on, I had quite a reputation as a remote viewer and psychic, and a whole family flew from Florida to meet with me here, and I was sicker than hell. I had the flu. I said, these people flew all the way from Florida to see me, and I don't know what I charged them, $100, a couple $100, something like that. So anyway, I spent the whole day with them, sicker than hell, and they had a family member that had been murdered. So the problem with being psychic or a remote viewer is you relive the damn murder, and it is absolutely hell. It really is. It is hell, because you feel what the person that's being killed, how they felt. And this just recent to me happened with me about 6 months ago. A little girl was hung. She was 9 years old, and I saw the whole thing. I tracked the bastard down that did it, and I got him. I said, no, I'm going to get him, and I did. I found him. It was I'm not going to say where, but it wasn't hard for me to track him down, and I remember. Oh, this is kind of
it's an
emotional for me.
Yeah, it is.
It's emotional for me. So anyway, I heard what the words of the little girl, the last words. She said, and what she felt like when she died, and what he did, what he said. So I said, I'm going to get this bastard, and I did. I got him. I found him. I found where he lived, where he worked, and I'm not going to say what I did, but I heard a voice that said, you got him. So good. He deserved it. So anyway, it's an incredible energy drain. I mean, at my age, I couldn't do it. But at any rate, this thing in Florida, I found I described it. It says, this guy who killed your brother, or what it was, because I saw the whole murder. I described him, and they said, oh my God, that's Frank. And I said, you're never going to get him, because he threw the gun in a canal. It was a pistol. He threw it in a canal, and it's in about 3 feet of mud off a bridge, and so. Anyway, psychic stuff and remote viewing is pretty hard to handle sometimes. And I've often said, is this a curse or is it a blessing? And I really don't know.
Well, if you think about it this way too, and I try to think about that ability this way, because friends of mine are the psychic detectives, and they work with the police and the FBI and families, and the ability to stop a serial killer after the first 2 killings, saving unknown amounts of lives. That ability, at the end of the day, if you only solve that one, where that one serial killer gets taken off the street, yes, he went through some trauma, but at the end of the day, it's worth the saving of multiple lives. So that energy that you've put out, and that the negativity, that negative energy that you've brought in, is balanced in the great karma scale of, look at what you did at that point in time in history here that prevented a continuation of those events, and also helps the soul of the deceased find a little bit of, they're not running around panicking and screaming for help. They can move on, and their family can deal with the remains, and the family can move on. So you're doing a good thing.
Well, this guy that he was, I'm not going to say the state, because they still haven't solved the murders. But he was a serial killer, and he was getting ready to kill another girl, because he was a maintenance worker, and he worked around kids' playgrounds. And he was looking at another girl, so that's why I said I'm going to get him, and I did. And like I say, I've always said, you got him. I'm not going to say what I did, but he won't mess around with any more little kids. And evidently, I had a great channel one time said, you were a powerful warlock once in a past life, so maybe I still have warlock abilities. Maybe I use them occasionally. Because warlocks is destructive. I mean, it's powerful destruction. So maybe I have those abilities, but I don't. I've kind of avoided getting too involved because I don't want to be another Edgar Casey, because Edgar Casey burned himself out.
Yeah,
doing what he did. I don't want to do that because I don't have that much energy.
Well, I think my theory behind that too is, you do bring things from your past lives into this one. And as we go from that past life into this past life, you grow. You're stronger coming into this one, even though you're a warlock or whatever in that life. Yes. Your vibration's a lot stronger in this one, and it will be a lot stronger in your next one until you become who eventually we all become. But if you were to, we're still confined to this meat sack, and no matter how powerful that vibration is and how good our energy is, we can only go as long as our meat sack will propel us. Then we move on, and eventually we get another one. So I'm happy, semi-happy with the one I have right now, but we'll see what I get the next for my upgrade.
I told him, you're not going to send me back here. You try to send me back here, there's going to be a fight. I told him, I said, I'm not going to do this again. You try to send me back here, and there's going to be a fight. So I said, you better not try to send me back here. So we'll see.
In your abilities, Tom, do you communicate with spirit guides?
Yes, I can talk to them. Yeah.
Do you see them too?
I can talk to them like I'm talking to you.
Okay. But in your mind, can you see them?
Yeah. Sometimes I can see them, but usually it's just I'll feel somebody close, and I'll say, "Who are you?" You know what? And so I have this radar thing, this scanner thing that I do that locks onto them. It's like radar. It really is, and I can probe. It's like I don't know. It's this thing that kind of just folds out like an umbrella with no cloth on it. Just expands, and then these probes find things. I mean, I could talk about this all night because I learned this at the Berkeley Psychic Institute. I was taught this there. So I find one of these beings, and I say, well, who are you? You know, who are you? Are you? And I can usually tell if they're an angel or an ascended being or something like that. I can usually see them. I can tell, but a lot of them are just dead humans, you know. And I have never. Well, yeah, I have run across poltergeists, bad ones. They can't pull anything on me because I can see them. So, no, I've done it lots of times. I've carry on conversations with beings that don't have bodies that are. Well, I'll just tell you this one story real quick. I was doing at my desk. I was at my desk one night, and I felt this being going by me, and I said, "Who are you?" And then I could see him. But this one I could see good. I said, "Well, my name's Leo." And I said, "Yeah, really? Why? You know, you're not supposed to be here. You need to go into the light and get out of here. You know, you're just hanging around here for, you know." And he said, so I asked him, where are you from? He said, Scotland. I had a newspaper business in Scotland. I had 2 daughters, and told me, and I said, well, Leo, how come you haven't gone on? And he said, I'm afraid of the light. I said, you are? Why? And he said, I'm just afraid of it. I'm afraid of it. I don't want to go into the light. So I said, Leo, I tell you what, I'll go with you. So I went over there where he was. You know, it's probably remote viewing my psyche or whatever. So I took him by the arm, and I said, we can see the light over there. You know, so I took Leo over there, and I had to kind of pull him. You know, and I said, and so we got sucked right into the light, the tunnel, the white light, and so we're going at this incredible speed through these levels. You know, the colors are flashing by, and we stopped, and it was all blue, and a voice said, "You've got to go back. You can't go any further." And I looked, and Leo was gone. I had him by the elbow, but he was gone. So they sent me back. So I ended up, you know, back here. But, you know, I do stuff like that. I didn't care. I was just going to, let's go on, Leo. Let's go into the light. Let's do it. You know, so it was quite an experience.
We've done that with a friend of mine who remote views houses, or she's a psychic and takes a deep breath and will show up in a house on the other side of the world where someone's having a ghost problem and walk in and identify all the ghosts in the house. And then cool. Through her, I interview the dead person to find out why they're still there. And we eventually, the light kind of shows up inside of Skeeter, the psychic, and they walk into her and go. And Tom, this is fascinating. We crossed a lady from a Chinese lady here in the Pacific Northwest outside of Vancouver, British Columbia. She had followed a First Nations woman who was collecting crystals on a creek bed up in an area where some railways went through, and there was some smaller Chinese communities back when they were building the railroads. And this woman, the ghost of this 80-something-year-old Chinese lady, followed this woman home and was occupying one of the rooms in her house. Well, we identified that we were talking to the Chinese lady, and of course in English, because it's like you just communicate no matter what language they speak, and through the psychic. And the psychic said, okay, she wants to cross, and she was very important in the community because there's a whole bunch of Chinese men. She was very important to a large group of Chinese men, like she was ran some group or whatever. And she said, well, I'll cross. I just want to take my tea set with me. So she stood there. The psychic is relaying, well, now she's got a tea set in her hand, and she's wrapping it in cloth. And then the psychic went quiet, and she said, it's really weird. I feel really wobbly. I don't know why. And then she paused and said, I'm standing on a boat in the middle of a river. So where a lot of people, we just, nowadays, in our culture, we go, quote unquote, to the light. We realized then that was her traveling to the light. She crossed the river because in her culture, she crossed the river to get to the other side. So she was shown whatever it was she needed to move. Even though we all go to the same place, it is our perception is different depending on our belief system. If one person crosses a river, another person goes through a light, it's all the same place, but that's what we are shown to make it comfortable for us and our beliefs to cross. Yeah. That was fascinating. Yeah. That was really cool. But I like doing that. I'm the type of guy that will, if somebody pisses me off and has an old haunted hospital somewhere in the U.S. and is going to charge a paranormal group $500 to come in and talk to the dead people that are trapped in the place and offer them beer, I may remote view the hell out of that place and cross everybody over. Because I just don't like dead people being used like that.
That's called charlatans. Yeah, no, that's unfortunately there's a lot of that goes on, and I had an experience when I first came to Sedona. I got a call from a woman in Jerome up here on the hill, and she said, I have no money. I can't pay you. I says, no problem. So she said, my kid, there's a ghost in the house has been scaring the hell out of my kids. So I said, cool. I'll come up tomorrow. I love telling this story. So I went up, and she lived in a 2-story house on the side of a hill. The second story was basically underground, where the windows looked out. So anyway, I said, yeah, I know. The ghost is downstairs. And says, yeah. She says that's where the kids see it. So I says, can I go down there? She says, yeah, sure, do it. So I went down and I found the ghost right off, and it was a woman, scared to death, in a corner, scared. And I said, you're scaring the hell out of the kids. And she said, I don't mean anybody any harm. I just want to be here. And oh gosh, I can't remember her name now. I can't remember her name. But so I went back upstairs and I said, well, I found the ghost, and she said her name is I'll just use a name, Adele, so the woman said, "Oh my God, that's the Indian woman, the Native American woman that took care of the kids in San Diego, and she died just before we left." So the woman had come with them. So I told her she doesn't mean any harm. She just wants to be here because she loves the kids. So she told the kids that, and they were young. They were maybe 8 and 10. The girl is 8, and he was about 10, and they were incredible artists. I wish I got one of their drawings, because they would go down and the ghost would pose for them, and they'd draw the ghost, and they were phenomenal drawings. The boy especially was an unbelievable. I mean, he was too good of an artist for that young, 10 years old. So anyway, I left, and the kids were happy, the ghost was happy, so everything was fine.
That's cool. So, so it's like the nanny. The nanny wants to hang around. Right. She doesn't want to scare anybody. That is very cool. And so I guess they didn't recognize her when they were scared, but when that fear kind of went away, everything, the energy relaxes, and then they probably recognize her as being the caregiver from years earlier, or what they could remember of her anyway.
Well, a ghost can feel weird. I mean, when they're, I'm kind of fearless when it comes to this stuff. Like I've said forever, I am not an armchair. I am not an armchair researcher. I hunt them on their turf. I always have. I've always done that, and I've never been hurt in any way. But I go after them on their turf. So a ghost can feel pretty creepy when they're close to you. And so I look at them and I say, sometimes they won't talk. I can't get them to talk, and some of them they won't shut up. But there's some really bad people that die, and they don't know that they're dead, and they don't know they're. I did a talk. The house was packed. I mean, wall to wall packed with people. I did a talk, and we had trouble with the audio system. We couldn't get it to work right, and a woman, really nasty, yelled, "I didn't come here to pay my money to hear you mumble." Well, it pissed me off. So when we finally got the audio going, I laid some stuff on these people, especially about ghosts. I just let it go. I said, and nobody stomped out. I thought, well, I'm going to lose half the audience. Yeah, half of them are going to stomp out. Nobody did. So the reaction on the faces was, awestruck to totally pissed off. So anyway, I laid a lot of the ghost stuff on them, and I could see that didn't sit with them at all. But it's true. It's truth. So anyway, there's always ghosts around. They're just around all the time. And some of them are really, if they were a bad person, if they were a screwed up person when they're alive, they're a screwed up person when they're dead. People do not turn into angels when they die. I mean, they don't. I mean, they think they're going to, these nasty, mean people are going to turn into an angel and go to heaven. Well, that ain't how it works. You continue your training. If you're a really bad person, you're going to go somewhere to learn how to be a good person over there too. So,
we find that the 4 reasons people don't die or don't cross over are their children. The number one group are the children who literally maybe die in a hospital, and their great grandmother comes through and says, "Okay, Billy, come with me." They go, "Screw that! I'm waiting for mom and dad," and so they don't leave. And the other ones don't know, like you say, don't know they're dead. We get those in car accidents or in war, or the other ones are they still think they have some work they got to do. That's why you find a lot of nurses still in some hospitals helping the dead who haven't crossed because they don't know they're dead, and the nurses are there. And the other ones they hold back because of a religious fear. Like, well, okay, that's the light? Oh, crap, I thought I was just going to turn into bug meat, and now I'm going to go to a light, and now, I coveted my neighbor's wife, therefore that's a 10 commandment. Yeah, I'm going to go to hell. I'm not going. So when we cross them over, one of the things especially, it's easier to cross the ones with a religious belief in, because all you have to do them is to second guess it for a split second, and that light opens up for them. And usually a friend or a family member comes through and says, "No, they're telling the truth. You can come." And what we do is we tell them that if Jesus died for your sins, why would you still be punished in death? And all they have to do is go, "Oh?" And that split second, And we crossed over a guy who had died of natural causes in 1942 in prison for committing a murder, and he was brought up Roman Catholic, but still wasn't religious. But on death, when the light showed up, you went, "Oh crap, they were right. I'm staying here." And he was an asshole. I'm sorry, he was a jerk in this house. And when we planted that in his head, he hesitated, and that hesitation brought his cellmate through to say, "No, they're telling the truth. You can go." And off he went.
Yeah.
But it's getting them to take the step. And the hardest ones are I shouldn't say the hardest ones. The kids are hard, and the ones who don't know they're dead are always iffy. You don't want to be. And when I did paranormal investigation, that was a big no-no. You didn't go to somebody's house that you're only going to be in for 3 hours and sit in their kitchen and say, "Hey, do you know you're dead?" And then we get to leave.
Yeah, right.
And that poor ghost is like flying around the house, opening and closing cupboards and screaming for the next month. That's why paranormal investigation teams, I dislike a lot of them. Most of the ones, if not everyone I was on, because they would go to a residence that someone said, "Oh, this is haunted." You'd go in and go, "Yeah, it's haunted," and they'd listen to all the evidence. And then want to come back next week to show more people that this place was haunted. And it's like, you're not really helping. Are you going to cross it over? Oh, no, we're not going to cross it over. Like, we don't know how to do that. Well, then don't. Like, if you're going to phone a paranormal group and want them to come and check something's haunted out, you figure out what they're going to do after they confirm it's haunted. And most of the time, if you think it's haunted, it is haunted. It's just one of those things. I went on a paranormal investigation with a group in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, town. Yeah. There's a house from the 1700s where there was a murder a woman was murdered back in the 80s. And she's still in the kitchen, for goodness sakes. and nobody lives in the place because it's, and the paranormal group rents it out and takes the tours there to talk to the dead person in the kitchen.
Oh, jeez.
And I said, and in amongst all the tourists on the tour, I looked at the two people putting it on. I said, so have you tried to offer her to cross over? And they just stared. Everyone stopped, looked at the two putting on the tour, and the lady said, no, we don't do that because we put on tours. Like, dude, this poor girl is trapped in death in the kitchen where her ex-boyfriend shot her in the stomach, and she freaks out. It's like, see, there's one of those remote viewing ones I'd like to show up, and all of a sudden that house is no longer haunted. But like you say, everywhere's haunted. They're everywhere. And Jerome, Arizona, where you are, down the road from you, my God, it's ground that's filled with quartz and is being solar loaded by the sun daily. And if you want to see them, they sure can draw energy from around them to be seen and to be heard and to, lift things and throw things. Jerome is wonderfully haunted, but it's not more haunted than anywhere else. It's just that you can see them there easier.
Yeah, Jerome has 7 buildings that are on the National Registry for haunted places.
Yes, I've been into one of the old hotel up there. I went in. It's not an old hotel. It's an old hospital that is now a hotel. I was talking to one of the waiters there, and he lived in it's a very windy road. It's a wonderfully crisscrossed side of a mountain town. But he lived in some quarters that were just condemned that month. This is like a year ago when I was there. And he said that place was crazy haunted. And he said it was a lot of fun. They knew exactly who the ghosts and stuff were, but they were the guys who worked in the hotel, and it was dirt cheap to live there, but it was condemned, and they had to move out. But yeah, Jerome's a wonderful place. Cottonwood, again, lovely town. Sedona, if anybody hasn't been to Sedona, Cottonwood, Jerome, Prescott, Arizona, you got to go. This is a life-changing experience when you actually see a UFO and know that it's not a whole bunch of satellites, or that it's not something that's of Earth, and trying to get your head around it. It does change you and does open things up for you. And Tom Dongo, thank you very much for coming by. Go to his website, tomdongo.com. Check out the book that we were talking about, Merging Dimensions, the incredible saga of the Bradshaw Ranch that he and the late Linda Bradshaw wrote. It come up to special editions, 32 pages, color photographs in there. Get a discount if you go onto the website, tomdongo.com. Tom, thanks again for coming out.
Yeah, it was a great pleasure, James. Thank you.
Let's roll. And hey! Let's be careful out there.
Run through the hair.